As you settle in and the night wraps itself gently around you, let's wander into the quiet world of Pokémon evolution. This journey isn't about the excitement of leveling up or the thrill of new moves. It's about the soft, often overlooked details, the connections between Pokémon, how they grow, and what their transformations reveal about the world they live in. We'll drift through facts, observations, and hidden lore, all while staying nestled in a calm, dreamy rhythm. Let's begin with one of the most iconic evolution lines in Pokémon history: Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, and Venusaur. Bulbasaur is unique. It's the only starter Pokémon that is also part grass type from the beginning, and its evolution line is one of the only ones that shows a plant physically growing over time. The bulb on Bulbasaur's back slowly blooms into a full flower by the time it becomes Venusaur. In the Pokédex, it's said that the plant blossoms when exposed to sunlight, giving Venusaur an ecological role that feels grounded in real biology. It photosynthesizes to thrive. It's more than a battle partner, it's part of its environment. Next, we move to Charmander, Charmeleon, and Charizard. While Bulbasaur's evolution is tied to nature and sunlight, Charmander's is tied to heat and emotion. From the beginning, it's stated that Charmander's flame is connected to its life force. If it flickers, the Pokémon is weak. This theme continues through its evolutions. Charmeleon becomes more aggressive, its tail burning brighter as its temperament flares. And Charizard, despite its dragon-like appearance, was not originally a dragon type, a subtle nod to how appearances can be deceiving. Only with its mega evolution and later regional forms did it embrace that classification. Squirtle, Wartortle, and Blastoise offer a different kind of progression. Their evolution line has one of the more dramatic physical shifts, from a tiny turtle to a tank-like creature with hydro cannons. One of the more overlooked details is that Wartortle has fluffy ears and a fluffy tail, which completely disappear upon evolving into Blastoise. The reason is never explained in-universe, but it's one of the few evolution lines where the middle stage has features that vanish instead of growing. Some fans theorize it represents a transitional period, like a teenager outgrowing their awkward stage. From starters, we move to another trio, the Abra, Kadabras, and Alakazam line. This evolutionary path is steeped in psychic mystery. Abra sleeps for up to 18 hours a day and only avoids danger by teleporting in its sleep. Kadabra's entry mentions that when it appears, clocks stop and machines fail, hinting at its disruptive psychic energy. And Alakazam, with its twin spoons and massive IQ, is often portrayed as the pinnacle of mental power. What's fascinating is that in some Pokédex entries, Alakazam's brain continues to grow so rapidly that its head becomes too heavy to hold up without psychic support. Its intelligence, almost to a burdening degree. The Machop, Machoke, and Machamp line is the physical opposite of the Abra line. While one is about psychic growth, the other is about physical strength. A Machop starts off small, training constantly. Machoke, often seen wearing a championship belt, is said to restrain its own power with that belt. And Machamp, with 4 arms, can throw punches faster than the eye can see. This evolution line subtly tells a story about control, how true strength comes not from power alone, but from the discipline to master it. In Galar, regional forms and evolution mechanics take center stage, especially with lines like Galarian Meowth, which evolves into Berserker instead of Persian. This small detail speaks volumes. Meowth's typical evolution into Persian is elegant and sleek, while Galarian Meowth becomes Berserker, wild, messy, and almost Viking-like. It's a reminder that environment shapes evolution, both biologically and culturally. The same Pokémon exposed to a different setting can evolve in wildly different directions. It reflects nature's adaptability. Similarly, Yamask, in its Galarian form, evolves not by level or stone, but by taking 49 or more damage in battle and then walking under a specific stone archway in the Dusty Bowl. This unorthodox method tells a story all its own. Yamask must suffer and then pass under an ancient structure, almost like a symbolic ritual or pilgrimage. Evolution here isn't just biological, it's emotional, spiritual, and tied to place. Let's now reflect on the Tyrogue evolution line, one of the more branching examples. Tyrogue can evolve into 3 different Pokémon depending on its stats. If its attack is higher than defense, it becomes Hitmonlee. If defense is higher, it becomes Hitmonchan. And if the stats are equal, it becomes Hitmontop. This system doesn't just reward training. It reflects the idea that who Tyrogue becomes depends on its growth path. Each evolution represents a different martial discipline, kicking, punching, or spinning, and this branching system emphasizes player agency in shaping Pokémon destiny. The evolution line of Eevee may be the most famous for its branching paths. Originally able to evolve into 3 forms, Vaporeon, Jolteon, and Flareon, it later gained more evolutions across generations, now totaling 8. Each evolution is tied to a specific method: stones, time of day, happiness, proximity to specific locations, and more. What makes Eevee unique is its unstable genetic makeup, which allows it to adapt to its environment. It's a Pokémon that symbolizes potential and choice. In the world of Pokémon, Eevee is the embodiment of the idea that growth isn't linear, it's personal. The Phoebus evolution into Melodic offers one of the most dramatic transformations, from a seemingly useless, awkward fish into one of the most beautiful and graceful water types. But it doesn't evolve by level. It used to evolve through high beauty in contests, and now through a prism scale. The idea is that beauty isn't just surface level, it's nurtured, appreciated, and sometimes earned. Phoebus evolving into Melodic is a reminder that appearances don't define worth, and with patience, transformation can be profound. Similarly, Magikarp into Gyarados mirrors the Chinese myth of the carp who leapt over the dragon gate, becoming a dragon. Magikarp is weak, often mocked in-universe and by fans alike. But with enough patience, just level 20, it becomes Gyarados, a massive, powerful beast. It's one of the earliest examples of narrative evolution. The idea that what you start as doesn't limit what you can become. The Wurmple line introduces randomness in evolution. Depending on invisible personality values, Wurmple can evolve into either Silcoon or Cascoon, which then become Beautifully or Dustox, respectively. Unlike player-controlled evolutions, this one is left to fate. It's a subtle commentary on unpredictability in nature. 2 identical Wurmples can grow up to be very different, with no way for the player to influence it, only to observe. The Nincada evolution is one of the most fascinating from a mechanical perspective. When Nincada evolves into Ninjask, if you have an extra Pokeball and space in your party, you also receive a Shedinja, a ghost-like shell left behind. Shedinja doesn't act like a typical Pokemon. It has K1 HP, can only be hit by super effective moves due to its unique ability, and has a haunting Pokédex entry that says it steals souls from those who peer into its back. This evolution isn't just about growth, it's about what gets left behind. Inkay, introduced in Generation 6, flips evolution, quite literally. To evolve Inkay into Malamar, players must level it up while holding their gaming system upside down. It's one of the rare cases where evolution is tied to a real-world action, breaking the fourth wall in a subtle and playful way. It fits with Inkay's dark psychic typing, tricking both the opponent and the player. Lastly for now, let's gently touch on the Ralts line. Ralts, Chirlia, Gardevoir, and optionally Galad. Ralts evolves through friendship, and then further through either level or the use of a Dawnstone for Gallade, depending on gender. Gardevoir's Pokédex entry speaks of it creating black holes to protect its trainer, a poetic, slightly frightening image that reflects loyalty. Gallade, on the other hand, wields psychic blades and represents honor. This evolution line isn't just about power, it's about care, devotion, and emotional growth. As you rest, these evolution lines aren't just facts or mechanics. They're gentle stories about change, how every Pokémon, like every person, grows in unique and surprising ways. And just like the player watching them evolve, sometimes the quietest changes are the ones that matter most. The night is still, and we continue our quiet journey through the evolution lines of the Pokémon world, lines that are more than just upgrades or stats. Each evolution carries a story. Some are told in ancient myths, some whispered in Pokédex entries, and some hidden in the behavior of the Pokémon themselves. We're not just watching Pokémon grow, we're learning about the subtle beauty of transformation, of change that's quiet, natural, and filled with wonder. Let's begin with one of the oldest lines, Dratini, Dragonair, and Dragonite. Dratini, a small serpent-like Pokémon, was once thought to be a myth. It lives underwater, shedding its skin repeatedly as it grows. This molting hints at the tremendous energy inside it, just waiting to be unlocked. Dragonair is graceful, with small wings on the sides of its head, and can control the weather, a sign of its growing connection to natural forces. But the jump to Dragonite is dramatic. Dragonair is sleek and serpentine. Dragonite is orange, bulky, and almost cartoonishly friendly in appearance. Some fans believe the transformation is meant to symbolize the duality of power and kindness, that the strongest creatures in the Pokémon world don't have to be frightening. Then there's Beldum, Metang, and Metagross, a line that begins with a simple steel creature powered by magnetism. Beldum has no brain in the traditional sense. It uses magnetic fields to move and think. When it evolves into Metang, two Beldum merge, forming a stronger, semi-intelligent being. And when it evolves into Metagross, 4 Beldum make up its body. Metagross is said to have a supercomputer-like mind, capable of complex calculations. But what makes it interesting is that it doesn't grow like other Pokémon. It becomes smarter by combining its own parts. It doesn't shed, it fuses. This mechanical evolution speaks to a completely different form of intelligence. Now drift over to the Snorunt, Glalie, and Froslass line. Snorunt is a shy ice type that appears during snowy seasons and brings good fortune, especially when seen in groups. When it evolves, it can become Glalie, a floating icy face that traps prey in frozen breath. Or Froslass, but only if it's female and given a Dawnstone. Froslass is based on the Yuki Anna, a ghostly woman of Japanese folklore who appears in snowstorms. This split evolution is steeped in culture, gender, and myth, showing how Pokémon sometimes evolve not just through battles, but through deeply personal paths. In the Rockruff line, the evolution into Lycanroc depends on the time of day. In the game version, Rockruff can become midday form, Lycanroc, midnight form, or dusk form, each with different appearances and personalities. Midday is calm and precise. Midnight is wild and reckless. Dusk is a balance of the two, the idea that a Pokémon's final form can reflect when and how it evolves, not just that it evolves, adds richness to the world. It reminds us that timing matters, not just in Pokémon, but in life. Let's visit Phantump and Trevenant, a pair that turns a ghost story into a growth story. Phantump is said to be the spirit of a child who became lost in the forest. Its body is made from a rotted tree stump, and its cry is filled with sadness. But when it evolves into Trevenant, it becomes a protector of the forest. It guards trees from those who would harm them, controlling entire forests through roots and spiritual power. This shift from lost soul to guardian tells a story of healing. Evolution here is emotional, a transformation from grief into purpose. Larvitar, Pupitar, and Tyranitar offer a different journey. Larvitar is born deep underground and needs soil to grow strong enough to see the surface. Pupitar becomes a pressurized cocoon, storing massive energy, and Tyranitar bursts forth as a towering force of nature. What's fascinating is that despite Tyranitar's strength, its entries often highlight how it causes accidental destruction just by walking. Mountains crumble beneath its feet, storms form around it. It's a reminder that power must be managed with care, and that some Pokémon evolve into forces larger than themselves. From massive titans to tiny tricks, consider Zorua and Zoroark. Zorua uses illusions to protect itself, often disguising as other Pokémon or even humans. When it evolves into Zoroark, those illusions become more powerful and detailed. What makes this line unique is that their entire battle strategy revolves around tricking perception, not brute force. The lore also adds that Zoroark creates illusions of entire landscapes to protect its den. It's a line about deception, yes, but also about protection, family, and the lengths one will go to guard what they love. In Unova, we meet Axew, Fracture, and Haxorus. Axew is a playful dragon type, whose tusks regrow if broken. Fracture sharpens its tusks on river stones, preparing for battle, and Haxorus, the final evolution, is both intimidating and noble. Despite its fearsome look, it's said to be gentle and kind, using its axe-like tusks only when necessary. This contrast between appearance and nature runs through many evolution lines. Evolution doesn't always turn Pokémon into monsters. Sometimes it reveals their truest, calmest form. A lesser-known but fascinating line is Goomy, Sliggoo, and Goodra. Goomy is often called the weakest dragon type, soft and easily startled. Sliggoo, its middle form, is a slimy slug that can accidentally dissolve things it touches, but then comes Goodra, gentle, loyal, and affectionate. It's one of the few dragon types described as cuddly. What's more, Sliggoo only evolves into Goodra when leveled up in the rain. Water, usually associated with cleansing and rebirth, becomes the key to its final transformation. In that way, it mirrors nature's cycles, how even the softest things grow strong through the right conditions. Toxel and Toxtricity from Galar offer a modern twist. Toxel is a baby electric poison Pokémon that cries often and doesn't know how to control its energy. It evolves into one of two Toxtricity forms, amped or low-key depending on its nature. Amped is loud, hyperactive, and loves to perform. Low-key is chill, calm, and reserved. The fact that a Pokemon's personality, not stats, not items, determines its final form adds depth to the idea of individuality. No two Pokemon are exactly alike, and even evolution respects that. Let's not forget Trapinch, Vibrava, and Flygon, one of the most dramatic shifts in physical design. Trapinch is a land-based Pokemon with massive jaws living in desert pits. Vibrava, its middle form, becomes insect-like, developing wings. Then Flygon, known as the Desert Spirit, becomes a fully airborne dragon type with goggle-like eyes. This shift from ground to sky is more than just type change. It's a full redefinition of identity. It shows how growth can sometimes mean letting go of what once grounded you. And in the sea, Remoraid and Octillery tell a hidden story. Remoraid looks like a small fish and was once designed to resemble a revolver. Octillery, in contrast, resembles a tank. The original design concept was that Remoraid would be a fish-shaped gun and Octillery a cephalopod tank, highlighting a theme of weapon evolution. Though this wasn't heavily emphasized in the final game, the concept remains. Evolution doesn't always go from fish to shark. Sometimes it takes imaginative, even surreal directions. Then there's the story of Cubone and Marowak. Cubone is known as the lonely Pokemon, wearing the skull of its deceased mother. Its tears stain its skull helmet. When it evolves into Marowak, it becomes stronger and more composed, no longer crying, but still carrying the memory of its loss. In Alola, the regional Marowak evolves differently, becoming Ghost Fire type, channeling spirits with a dancing flame. Here, the evolution reflects grief, transformed into ritual. A Pokemon that mourns becomes one that protects and honors the dead. It's one of the most emotionally layered lines in the entire franchise. As the night drifts on, the more you explore these evolution lines, the more you realize they aren't just mechanics, they're little stories. Some are sad, some hopeful, and many are deeply personal. Pokemon don't just evolve in level, they evolve in character, in tone, in meaning. And in a world where growth can happen in so many ways, it's comforting to know that each evolution, no matter how small, is part of something bigger. As the world around you softens and the stillness of night deepens, we continue this gentle exploration through the many evolution lines of Pokémon. These aren't just game mechanics or design choices. They're little narratives, miniature myths about how Pokémon grow, adapt, and become something new. In the silence of evolution, there is beauty, and tonight, we walk quietly through more of it. Let's begin with a Pokémon that tells a deeply layered tale, Galarian Farfetch'd. Originally, Farfetch'd was a normal flying type with no evolution, but in Galar, this version is pure fighting type. Rougher and tougher, and equipped with a massive leek, it wields like a lance. What makes it special is its evolution into Sirfetch'd. To evolve, Galarian Farfetch'd must land 3 critical hits in a single battle. That condition isn't based on level or items. It's a trial of skill and precision. Only the most valiant Farfetch'd becomes Sirfetch'd. This evolution line isn't just about strength. It's about proving oneself, becoming a knight in spirit, not just in form. Another noble line is Honage, Blade, and Aegislash, a literal haunted sword that evolves into a dual-bladed warrior and eventually into a sentient shield and sword hybrid. Honage is said to be possessed by a spirit that uses its ribbon-like arm to drain life energy from those who touch it. When it becomes Aegislash, it gains the ability to shift between offensive and defensive stances. According to lore, Aegislash has been used by kings throughout history and can sense the potential of a leader. It's one of the only Pokémon whose form directly reflects its strategy, a shifting balance between guarding and striking, echoing real battle tactics and royal symbolism. Let's travel now to Sinnoh, where the Budew, Roselia, and Roserade line tells a story of blooming over time. Budew begins as a tiny bud that only evolves through friendship during the daytime, a poetic detail suggesting that it needs light and care to grow. Once it becomes Roselia, it can only evolve further with a shiny stone, which feels less like a simple item and more like a symbol of beauty and refinement. Roserade's bouquet hands are used to launch poisonous barbs, turning elegance into danger, a blend of grace and lethality that makes this line particularly memorable. In a similar vein, Cherubi and Cherim share a peaceful but easily overlooked evolution story. Cherubi carries a second, smaller berry on its body, one that seems to be a part of itself. When it evolves into Cherim, its form depends on the weather. Under strong sunlight, it opens into a cheerful, flower-like appearance, full of energy and joy. But without sunlight, it remains closed, quiet, and reserved. This shift based on light exposure echoes the behavior of real plants, showing how Pokémon design often mirrors nature in gentle, poetic ways. Let's pause with a more unusual example, Cosmog Cosmoem and its branching evolutions into either Solgaleo or Lunala. Unlike most legendary Pokémon, Cosmog begins weak and even referred to as the Nebula Pokémon. It evolves into Cosmoem, a Pokémon described as being so heavy it warps space-time around it, despite its small size. From there, it becomes either the sun-like Solgaleo or the moon-like Lunala, depending on the game version. This line represents cosmic growth, from nebula to celestial body. It's not just powerful, it's cosmic storytelling. A Pokémon that begins as Stardust and becomes a celestial guardian is a metaphor for potential we can all relate to. Now let's consider Mime Jr., Mr. Mime and Mr. Rhyme, a curious evolution line rooted in performance, emotion, and a touch of strangeness. Mime Jr. evolves into Mr. Mime through high friendship and knowing the move Mimic, a nod to its theatrical nature. But in Galar, Mr. Mime gains an ice typing and eventually evolves into Mr. Rhyme, a tap-dancing gentleman with a cane and bowler hat. Mr. Rhyme's design is eccentric, but it fits the idea that performance is at the heart of this line. Each evolution adds layers to its personality, moving from copying others to becoming a performer in its own right. Let's return to a simple but powerful line, Caterpie, Metapod, and Butterfree. This is one of the earliest examples of Pokémon evolution, and it mirrors the life cycle of a butterfly, larva to chrysalis to adult. But even here, there's subtle storytelling. Metapod can barely move and has limited moves, relying mostly on Harden, a stage of vulnerability. It must endure before transforming. Butterfree then bursts forth as something new, vibrant, and mobile. Even in its simplicity, this line reminds us that growth often comes after quiet patience. In Alola, the evolution of Rockruff into Lycanroc adds another layer. The dusk form can only be achieved by evolving at a specific time during the evening, and only if Rockruff has the special ability Own Tempo. This is one of the most specific and conditional evolutions in the game, it creates a kind of secret club, a form only achievable through timing, ability, and attention to detail. It rewards careful players with a unique version that sits between the calm midday form and the wild midnight form. It's like evolution caught in a moment of transition, brief, rare, and beautiful. Galarian Slowpoke, Galarian Slowbro, and Galarian Slowking form. Another split evolution line shaped by the use of special items, Galarica Cuff or Galarica Wreath. What's fun about this line is its subtle commentary on intelligence. Galarian Slowking, with a shelter latched to its head, is described as uttering incantations that scientists can't understand, almost like a wizard or a shaman. The entire line plays with the idea of slowness being mistaken for stupidity, when in fact, it may be a different form of wisdom entirely. Intuitive, unhurried, and strange. Inkay and Malamar, mentioned briefly before, deserve a second look for their real-world interaction. Inkay evolves into Malamar only when you level it up, while the console is upside down. This mechanical quirk is playful, and it fits Malamar's theme of inversion, trickery, and manipulation. Its lore describes it as hypnotic, bending others to its will. That real-world inversion needed to evolve. It becomes a kind of ritual, a secret password you perform in physical space to unlock its potential. Few evolution methods are as literally hands-on. Gumi, Sliggoo, and Goodra have an alternate evolution in the Hisui region. There, Sliggoo becomes Hisuian Goodra, a dragon steel type that's more withdrawn and melancholic than its Kalos counterpart. It carries its shell on its back like a burden, and its eyes seem tired, even gentle. Hisuian Goodra is still loving, but slower, more contemplative. This evolution line offers two possible outcomes, not just in typing, but in emotional tone. One becomes bouncy and affectionate, the other somber and shielding. It's a rare case of a Pokemon's final form expressing different emotional states depending on its environment. A mysterious line worth noting is Dano, Swilus, and Hydreigon. This three-headed dragon dark-type Pokemon has a terrifying aura, but its evolution pattern is deeply symbolic. Dano begins blind, bumping into everything. Swilus has two heads that don't cooperate, fighting over food. But Hydreigon, despite having three heads, is controlled by one mind. This story isn't just about growth and strength, it's about unification. From chaos and confusion comes harmony. It's a quiet narrative arc about identity finding cohesion. Snom and Frostmoth offer a serene, ice-cheer bug-type evolution that only happens when Snom reaches high friendship and evolves at night. The requirement of both emotional connection and the right time of day adds a lovely layer of intentionality. Frostmoth is elegant, slow, and peaceful, a Pokemon that drifts like snow through moonlight. The entire line feels like a sigh, a cool breeze across a quiet lake. It's one of the gentlest evolutions in the series. Lastly, for this part, consider Dreepy, Dracloak, and Dragapult. Dreepy is a tiny ghost, dragon type from Galar who, in ancient times, was wiped out. It's a spirit of a prehistoric Pokemon, playful, energetic, and curious. As it evolves, it gains speed and power, but retains a quirky feature. Dragapult launches Dreepy from the horns on its head like missiles. What seems like a comical gimmick actually speaks to a unique relationship. A dragon who carries its own past with it and uses that legacy to protect the present. It's eerie and endearing all at once. As we drift toward the next chapter, think of all these Pokemon not as battle tools, but as beings with lives, memories, and transformations. Their evolution lines are soft metaphors for grief, for growth, for potential, for timing. And all of them, in their own way, quietly echo something true about how we all change over time. The quiet of the evening deepens, and with it, we drift further into the warm, mysterious world of Pokémon evolution. These lines of change are more than transformations. They are stories that whisper about growth, time, and the countless ways a creature can adapt to the world around it. In these next moments, let's keep floating gently through these tales, listening to what evolution reveals about each Pokémon's soul. Let's begin with Larvesta and Volcarona, a two-stage line with ancient roots. Larvesta starts as a fuzzy, larva-like Pokémon tucked away in remote corners of Unova. Its evolution, Volcarona, is not just rare, it's revered. Known as the Sun Pokémon, it is said in lore to have once saved people during a volcanic winter by blanketing the land in fire. Volcarona doesn't evolve by level, it requires a high one, usually 59, which reflects how long it takes to reach that kind of mythic maturity. In ancient ruins, Volcarona's presence feels almost divine, a sun reborn from humble beginnings. Let's now consider Tynamo, Electric, and Electros, an evolution line based on deep-sea life. Tynamo is tiny and unassuming, floating with no true weaknesses due to its levitate ability. Electric becomes a wriggling electric predator, and Electros, the final form, is a deep-sea horror with leech-like arms and a hunger for prey. The line evolves through a thunderstone, but the story it tells is more primal. It mimics how bioluminescent sea creatures draw in others with light, then strike. It's one of the eeriest evolution lines, not because of ghostly energy, but because of the silent danger found in the darkest parts of the ocean. In contrast, let's drift to something adorable, Swablu and Altaria. Swablu is a cloud-like bird, delicate and shy. It dislikes dirt and will clean itself often. But when it evolves into Altaria, it becomes part dragon, a soft, floating creature that sings and soars through the skies. Altaria's mega evolution even turns its cotton wings into a glorious cloud-like form, highlighting how its beauty only deepens with growth. This is an evolution that feels like a dream, from a creature that mimics clouds to one that dances among them. Then there's Litwick, Lampent, and Chandelure, a line that shifts from spooky to spectral. Litwick is a small candle Pokémon said to absorb the life energy of those around it. Lampent lingers near hospitals and the dying. In Chandelure, the final evolution burns not the body, but the soul. It is one of the few evolution lines that leans heavily into ghostly horror, drawing from gothic imagery and old tales of will-o'-the-wisps. The evolution through a duskstone isn't just symbolic, it's a key into the shadowy unknown. This line feels less like leveling up and more like crossing a threshold between worlds. Let's take a breath and move to something much lighter. Bounsweet, Steenie, and Zarina. Bounsweet is a tiny fruit Pokémon so sweet-smelling that Pokémon and people alike want to eat it. When it evolves into Steenie, it becomes spunky, with stronger legs and a playful nature. But the Zarina, the final form, is elegant and commanding. This is one of the rare evolution lines that's entirely female and gains strength not just in power, but in grace. Zarina uses its legs in battle, but its strength lies in confidence. The evolution reads like a coming-of-age story, from cute and sweet to bold and self-assured. There's something poignant in the Cubchoo to Beartic evolution line. Cubchoo, with its ever-dripping nose, looks helpless and childlike. It's often portrayed as sneezy, slow, and not quite ready for the cold world. But when it evolves into Beartic, it becomes a powerful ice bear that can freeze anything with its breath. The transformation is like watching a child grow up, awkwardness melting away into strength and independence. In that way, Cubchoo's drippy, comical state makes its eventual evolution all the more satisfying. Now, take a slow walk through Duskull, Dusclops, and Dusknoir, a line that evolves from a small skull-faced ghost into something far more mysterious. Duskull floats silently, often said to spirit away disobedient children, a ghost story in Pokémon form. Dusclops, with a cyclopean eye and hollow body, is almost like a living void. Its body is a vacuum that absorbs anything. And Dusknoir, introduced in Sinnoh, acts as a guide to the afterlife, said to carry lost souls through dimensions. This line isn't scary in the jump scare sense. It's contemplative. Evolution here means taking on responsibility for others. Duskull scares, Dusknoir guides. It's growth through acceptance of duty. Another line worth noting is Petilil and Lilligant. In Unova, Lilligant is a grass type known for its beauty and grace, but in Hisui, Lilligant takes on a different form, part grass, part fighting, and gains agility and strength. This change shows that even elegance can adapt. Where the Unovan Lilligant is ornamental, the Hisuian form is a dancer, strong, active, and resilient. It's a lovely reminder that grace and strength are not opposites, but partners in motion. Let's look at Clamperl, one of the few Pokémon with two possible evolution paths, Huntail or Gorbis. Clamperl evolves into Huntail when exposed to a deep-sea tooth, and Gorbis with a deep-sea scale. Huntail becomes a deep-sea predator with a sinister grin, while Gorbis is elegant, using its body like a drill to feed off its prey's bodily fluids, a disturbing contrast to its appearance. This line plays with duality, beautiful and deadly, brutish and sly. Evolution doesn't just change form, it changes tone. Now drift toward the sands, where Sandile, Krokorok, and Crocodile reside. This ground, dark line starts off as a mischievous desert dweller. As it evolves, it gains sunglasses like eye markings and a sense of cunning. Crocodile is known for its brute strength and tenacity. What makes this line special is the way it's animated, always alert, always lurking. Evolution here feels like sharpening instincts, becoming more aware, more precise. From a silly croc to a dangerous hunter, the progression is smooth, subtle, and a little menacing. The fletchling line offers another contrast. Starting as a normal flying bird, it evolves into Fletchender, gaining fire typing, and then Talonflame, a sleek raptor that was once dominant in competitive play. Fletchling is adorable. Its chirps are soft, and its eyes wide. But Talonflame is fast, fierce, and built for high skies and intense combat. This line doesn't just grow stronger, it shifts entirely in purpose. From melody to fire, from songbird to jet, evolution here is flight redefined. In a much stranger case, consider Binacle and Barbracle. Binacle is two barnacle-covered hands on a rock. When it evolves into Barbracle, it becomes a humanoid with multiple heads. Each hand becomes a living face, including the one on its foot. It's a bizarre, slightly unsettling design, but it pulls from real barnacle behavior, creatures that live in colonies, often functioning as one. Evolution in this case isn't about becoming something better. It's about becoming something more. More limbs, more minds, more unity. As we approach the final chapters of this soft journey, let's end this part with a peaceful line. Lotad, Lombre, and Ludicolo. Lotad begins as a quiet, water-rich grass Pokémon, floating on ponds with a lily pad on its back. Lombre becomes playful, sometimes mischievous, and loves moonlight. Ludicolo is a joyful, dancing Pokémon that brings happiness wherever it goes, often appearing when music is played. This evolution line tells a story not of power, but of joy. Each form becomes more expressive, more musical. Evolution here is about letting go, giving in to rhythm, to fun, to the sheer act of being alive. And so, as the stars drift above and your breath slows, we remember that Pokémon evolution isn't just a system, it's a canvas, one that paints emotional stories of sorrow, surprise, joy, and growth. Every line is a miniature fable, and as we drift into our final chapter next, let those gentle stories rock you into deeper peace. As we enter the final stretch of our peaceful journey through the evolution lines of the Pokémon world, the night wraps gently around us like a soft cloak. There's something so comforting in these quiet tales of change, stories where nothing is rushed, where even the smallest Pokémon have destinies waiting just beyond their next step. We've walked through legends, through quiet meadows, and through shadows. And now, let's close this journey with a few final evolutions, each with its own gentle message, hidden detail, or quiet beauty. Let's begin with Rowlet, Dartrix, and Decidueye, a line that blends cuteness, adolescence, and mystery. Rowlet starts as a perfectly round owl that stores energy during the day and releases it at night. It's quiet, observant, and unexpectedly capable. As it evolves into Dartrix, it becomes preoccupied with grooming its feathers and developing style, a playful nod to teenage awkwardness. And then Decidueye, calm, precise, and ghostly, fires arrows with deadly aim, slipping between shadows without a sound. In Hisui, Decidueye takes on a different form, shifting into a grass fighting type, donning the appearance of a traveling monk. The entire line is a meditation on focus, on quiet precision, and the way stillness itself can become power. Now let's reflect on the Ralts, Kirlia, and Gardevoir line, a fan favorite, and for good reason. Ralts begins so shy and sensitive that it only approaches people with positive emotions. Kirlia gains grace and confidence, responding to happiness with pirouettes and psychic joy. But it's Gardevoir that completes the story, a Pokémon willing to distort dimensions to protect its trainer. It doesn't evolve into something just stronger, it evolves into something fiercely loving. And for male Kirlia, a different path is possible. With a Dawnstone, they become Galad, a knight-like psychic fighting type who protects with a blade of virtue. This split evolution isn't about gender roles, it's about choice, about becoming what your heart leads you toward. Let's travel to Kalos and visit Espurr and Meowstic, a line that feels unassuming until you look closely. Espurr's ears conceal immense psychic energy, and it constantly struggles to contain it. It looks cute, but within is a storm. Meowstic evolves with different forms based on gender. Male Meowstic tends to support with defensive abilities, while female Meowstic uses raw offense. Both hide their power behind calm expressions, suggesting a deeper lesson. Appearances don't always reflect the full story. Some power is quiet, but no less real. One of the most dramatic lines comes from Magikarp and Gyarados. Magikarp is universally known as weak. It flops, it splashes, it does very little, but its evolution is anything but. Gyarados is a towering, violent serpent with a legendary reputation. This transformation is based on the Chinese legend of a carp leaping over a waterfall to become a dragon, an allegory of perseverance and reward. No matter how weak Magikarp seems, evolution brings out its hidden strength. The story is clear, but sometimes greatness sleeps beneath the surface, waiting for its chance to rise. Let's take a breath with Togepi, Togetic, and Togekiss. Togepi represents innocence and happiness, storing positive energy and releasing it when it feels safe. Its evolution into Togetic is based on joy and friendship. It only evolves when it feels deep trust. And with a shiny stone, it becomes Togekiss, a graceful creature that spreads peace and serenity. This line doesn't follow traditional battle paths. It evolves not through combat, but through kindness, through stillness, and in a world often filled with conflict, that's a rare and beautiful thing. Yamask and Kofagrigus and its regional counterpart Runerigus offer a haunting glimpse into ancient pasts. Yamask is said to carry a mask representing its former human face. It weeps when it looks at it. When it becomes Kofagrigus, it turns into a terrifying coffin Pokémon that protects tombs and curses grave robbers. But in Galar, Yamask evolves differently. By taking 49 damage in a single hit and then passing under a specific stone arch, it becomes Runerigus, a guardian of forgotten runes. These are some of the most poetic evolution conditions in the game. To evolve, Yamask must be hurt, it must endure, and then it passes beneath something ancient. Evolution here is not just growth, it's passage, a ritual. From ghosts to light, we meet Tynamo, Electric, and Electros again, but with a final thought. Though their evolution requires a Thunderstone, there's a deeper idea buried inside. These Pokémon live in the deep ocean, powered by electric currents, but when they evolve, they gain the ability to levitate, to escape gravity, from sea to sky, from darkness to electricity. It's evolution as escape, from danger, from weakness, from limitations. Eevee, of course, cannot be ignored. Its multiple evolutions, Vaporeon, Jolteon, Flareon, Espeon, Umbreon, Leafeon, Glaceon, and Sylveon, all represent different elements and emotional conditions. Whether through stones, time of day, friendship, proximity to specific locations, or knowing a fairy-type move, Eevee's growth path is uniquely open-ended. It's the only Pokémon whose evolution reflects such wide emotional and environmental diversity. No other Pokémon mirrors choice quite like Eevee. It's an ode to potential, to becoming whatever fits you best. Shelmet and Axelgor evolve in a particularly fascinating way. Shelmet must be traded for a Carablast, and during the trade, the two Pokémon influence each other. Carablast becomes Escavalier, armored and knight-like, while Shelmet sheds its armor and becomes Axelgor, swift and unarmored. They evolve in opposite directions. One gains protection, the other gains speed. It's a rare case of evolution being relational. One cannot evolve without the other. It's a metaphor for how growth sometimes comes through exchange, not isolation. And finally, let's close with Charmander, Charmeleon, and Charizard, perhaps the most iconic evolution line. Charmander is a small lizard whose tail flame reflects its life force. Charmeleon becomes more aggressive, more rebellious, and Charizard, the final form, becomes a full dragon-like figure, though not technically a dragon type. In later generations, Charizard gains 2 Mega Evolutions, one of which finally grants it the dragon typing, and in Galar, it becomes Gigantamax Charizard, a blazing giant. From humble beginnings, this line has become a global symbol of strength. But even as it evolves into legend, it retains its spark, its story, a flame that never goes out. So as the final minutes drift quietly by and the world fades gently behind you, remember that these evolution lines are more than stats and stages. They are miniature epics, soft-spoken, symbolic, and full of emotional truth. Pokémon change because they must, because the world around them changes, or because they find something worth growing for. And in their stories, we find pieces of our own. Let these thoughts settle. Let their quiet rhythms carry you through the night. You are not alone on your journey. Like every Pokémon, you too are always evolving. Slowly, softly, perfectly. Good night.